My name's Taylor. This is an interview of my grandpa, Alvin Slaski. He was born in 1925. This is a story about him in World War II.
Taylor Gunn. I'd like to relate some of the experiences I've had going back over 50 years ago. World War II was on. We were at war with Japan and Germany. And in November 1943, I was drafted into the service. I ended up in the Army Infantry. I had my training in Camp Roberts, California. From there, I got on a troop ship, headed across the Pacific to the Philippine Islands. Going across in a troop ship was quite an experience. We looked up over the deck as far as you could see, in front of you, behind you, on both sides, were destroyers, cruisers, troop ships, planes overhead. We're getting ready to invade the islands in the Philippines, which were taken over by the Japanese during the war. We ended up in Lady Island. The battles were fierce. At times there, we didn't know if we were going to get out alive or not. One time I spent 17 days and 17 nights in a foxhole. Rain, water, we couldn't get out or nothing. We would throw canned food from one person to another to make sure we had enough to eat. We were getting bombed, shot at from all angles by the Japanese. Our planes were bombing. Our troops were getting hit, wounded, and killed. I had the job of times of talking with somebody, and 15 minutes later was carrying them back. They were either dead or badly wounded. I ended up getting a Silver Star for bravery, which I didn't think I deserved, because there were other men that worked just as hard and did just as much for their fellow soldiers as I did, but somebody, whoever it was, I don't know to this day, who turned me in for the Silver Star, but like I said, I ended up with it anyway. The battle was on for a long time. In between battles, we were going to a bivouac area, R&R we call, rest and relaxation, if that's what you want to call it, in between battles. The Philippine people were very generous and kind. They went through plain hell, if I should say it there, because the Japanese tortured them, murdered them, put them under very stressful conditions. There were times when these Philippine boys would come into our camp, and they were so poor and destitute, some of them never knew what a piece of candy was. We would give a little Filipino boy a little piece of candy that was wrapped in cellophane. He didn't even know how to open it up and eat the candy. Their clothes were, like I said, were so poor, they would end up making shirts. Their parents would end up making shirts out of rice bags and so forth. So we would end up giving these little Filipino boys T-shirts and candy, and we couldn't get rid of them. They were just like our own sons. They would stay practically day and night by us. They would wash our clothes. They would go into town, get us fresh eggs, climb trees and get us coconuts. And when we finally left after the battles were over, they cried like babies. They hung on to us. They dragged us. They wanted us to take them to America. It was a pathetic sight. Practically every one of us soldiers had what we call a boy that would work for us there. We call them dog robbers. That was the term that we gave them. In other words, they'd sit by your tent there, and if you give them candy, or like I said, or a shirt or something, it was just like you gave them an ounce of gold. Well, anyway, after the war was over, we went to Japan. We're in a sort of a Peace Corps there. I was a sergeant. I was made sergeant at the time, and one of the terms that were ordered to the Japanese that all their planes had to have the propellers off. We went to this one particular town that had a big airfield there. There were brand new Japanese planes, fighter planes, bombers. They were under camouflage netting. And our job was to take these planes and destroy them. So what we did, I had about 10 or 12 men working under me. We would take sledgehammers, climb up into the planes, into the cockpits. We would smash all the instrument panels, compasses and everything. Then get out, we'd have like a 5-gallon can of gas. We would pour gas all over inside that plane, then run a gas trail, maybe half a block away, set them on fire. We burned millions and millions of dollars worth of planes. A lot of the Japanese civilians in the meantime were standing by watching us, and it was just heartbreaking for them, but they had no choice in the matter. We had to destroy these planes. And I took pictures of them there. I still got some pictures home here that were taken during that time. And this, like I say, this goes back over 50 years ago. But anyway, we must have destroyed 25 to 30 planes. Well, when the war was over, we come back on the troop ship. We got into San Francisco under the Golden Gate. After all the battles and wars and the blood and the sweat and the tears, we figured, well, maybe it's worth it, maybe a better place to live in. But since then, there have been all types of wars, Korean War, and then the Vietnamese War, and the Jews and the Arabs. But anyway, we come home. We got in another experience I had after we left Seattle when we disembarked. We got on a train to Chicago. This was in the first part of January 1946. Never forgot, it was a clear, cool, crisp day. Got down off the train. There was a colored porter right at the bottom step, and I made the comment. I said, "Sure is a nice day." And he looked at me and he says, "Yes, it sure is." He says, "I believe if the good Lord made it any better, he'd have kept it for himself." I never forgot that comment that he made. Well, anyway, after we left Chicago, got on a train, come back to Saginaw. I got on downtown Saginaw, I got a cab. I said, "Buddy," I said, "I'm home." I says, "Take me to 2425 Fuller Street." This is about 5 o'clock in the morning. I can remember like it was yesterday. Cab driver left me off. I walked up the steps. I knew exactly where the bedroom window was. I tapped on the window several times. Finally, I says, "Dad, Mom, it's me, I'm home." And they come to the door. And it was a real happy reunion. My dad says, "Oh, I'll take off," he says, and I'm so glad to see you home. I said, "Well," I says, "Dad, if you feel like working," I says, "Go ahead." But he insisted on going to work, so I says, "All right, go ahead." And basically I went back to civilian life. But in the meantime, I ended up with malaria fever also. When we were overseas, we were taking medicine. None of us soldiers at the time realized that we had it. But when we come home, we quit taking the medicine, and we ended up with malaria fever. And what it does to you, one minute you're burning up, you're just like you're on fire. The next minute you're shaking, you're just like you're freezing, and no amount of clothing can keep you warm. And then the chills will go away. And I had what they call a Vivex type. It's the mild type. It eventually worked out of my system, and I got rid of it in about a year and a half to 2 years. So I ended up going back to civilian life, and that was basically a short summary of what I went through there. Some of the more gruesome things I just don't like to discuss because, like I said, we'd be talking to somebody just like I'm talking to you here right now, and 10 minutes later I'm carrying them back. Either they're dead or all shot up, and sometimes you thought your mind was playing tricks on you. It doesn't seem real because there was such gruesome things that happened. I'll just recall one incident there. We were in a coconut grove. The Japanese had us pinned down. They had artillery on a high hill, and they were firing all around us there. And then there was 9 of us fellas got wounded and 2 killed. I was right in the middle. I never got a scratch. One fellow named Dave Rastetter, I can remember it like it was yesterday. He was sitting in a foxhole getting ready to light a cigarette. He just had his neck and head above the ground, ready to light a cigarette. A shell exploded, and the shrapnel hit him in the side of the helmet there. His head went down. He never knew what happened to him. And there were things like that that were just kind of hard to visualize. So when I came home, I told my mother. I corresponded, by the way, with Dave's folks. They were a very religious family. He had one brother who was a priest, and I think he had two sisters that were nuns, Roman Catholic nuns. After about 2 or 3 years, every Christmas, maybe longer than that, I would write to Mrs. Rastetter and send her a nice card. And one day I said to my mother, I says, Mom, I says, if something happened to me, I said, would you like to know what happened? And she said, sure. So I wrote Mrs. Rastetter a letter ahead of time. I asked her if she'd like to know what happened to her son. I said, I was within maybe 25, 30 feet away from him when he got killed. She said she sure did. She often wondered what happened to him. So I told her, I says, exactly what happened. I says, he never suffered. I says, David never knew what hit him. Unfortunately, it was a real sad situation, but we had no control over it. So there were a lot of other things, too, that happened, but I don't feel that at this time we want to discuss it. It's been so long ago. And
Dad, how did you get shot?
well,
You want to talk about that? You got shot in the leg?
I don't remember how it was. Shot in the leg. So anyway, that's kind of a brief summary of things there. That there's an old saying, you know, to know the horrors of war is to want peace, and there's more truth in poetry in that. But sometimes you wonder why, you know, countries can't live in peace. It's still going on, and 50 years later there's been so many different wars, and probably will keep going on as long as we're here on Earth. But that's life, I guess. We have no control. It's either through land or religion or whatever it is that people just can't seem to get along or live together. So I hope this gives you a little short summary of what I've been through.
Great, Dad.
And
Thanks. How old are you, Dad?
anyway, I'm 75. I'm going to be 76 in a couple of months here.
There you go. There you go. Well, thanks, Dad.
And I feel good for my age there. And in spite of my troubles, I've had a wonderful life, and I've had a wonderful wife and family. I'm very, very thankful, and I hope I can keep going. Got a few more years left, you know.
Right.
Like they say, once in a while somebody say, don't you feel like you're over the hill? I says, well, I'd rather be over the hill than under it.
All right, Dad.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
So, okay, thank you, and I hope it just gives you a little enlightenment of, you know, what it was in the past.
It does.
And I don't like to discuss it. Very seldom I talk about these kind of experiences, but Catherine asked me if I would kind of renew a little bit of it for Taylor for school. Maybe some of the kids might know what it was like there anyway. You know, even though you can't visit it there. So
Great.
I hope it's a better world, and God bless us all, keeps us safe and healthy.
Great. Thanks, Dad.
How's that?
That's a group of your men. And
This one too?
now, where were you stationed there, Dad?
Camp Roberts, California.
California.
Central California.
Oh, Dan, look at this handsome guy. Dad's. I can't get right. His army picture. Close up on that, Dad. What a dapper fellow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Not changed a bit, Dad.
No?
No, not in 50 or whatever years.
Yeah, they
Great.
see me today and everybody says, you look just like your dad.
Thanks.
Oops. Oh.
There you go. Let me just get your medals quick. That's your Silver Star. You did excellent. Thank you. That's Purple Heart. I'm tired of it's engraved to him. It's engraved to him. Beautiful. There's a Silver Star. This is gorgeous. This is for gallantry. Gallantry in action. Beautiful. Excellent.